my beautiful people. It's Val Ashford of the Afro Buddha. You guys, I had a really good week last week. I went to Atlanta. I was in Atlanta all week, and it was not really a vacation. It was more of a working trip. But my reason for going to Atlanta is one of my favorite authors, lecturers, Dr. Bruce Lipton, was speaking at Unity North in Atlanta, and I got an opportunity to score tickets to that. Went to this event, and got my whole life, you guys. It's y'all know how I am. I love books. I love philosophy. My whole entire life is really just obsessed with learning and knowledge and all of that kind of stuff. Dr. Bruce Lipton is someone who I've read every single book he's ever written. My favorite of his books is The Biology of Belief. I first picked it up in like 2013 when I was really going through some hard stuff. I was going through a divorce, had a lot of hard stuff going on, and that was one of those books that helped me to kind of get the science side of like the law of attraction and manifesting and how the world works in that way. So it was a book that changed my life. So the opportunity to meet the person who wrote that book was like, y'all know, authors are my rock stars. That's who I fangirl over. So I went, and it was amazing. And I just want to share with you guys a little bit. I can't share everything that was from it because that man can talk. He packed a lot of information in about 2.5, 3 hours. And it's just, he's almost 70 years old, and he was just rattling off the top of his head. And it was just, I felt like I was back in college. Like I had my little notebook out and I was taking notes, and it was so much good information, everything that he had to say. And I knew coming into it, okay, I read all of his books, so I wasn't expecting to get a lot of new stuff, but it's something different when they're right there in front of you. And he did kind of expand and go a little deeper in person than I feel like he's done in his books and even on some of his YouTube videos. If you are not familiar with Dr. Bruce Lipton, I'm gonna need you to educate yourself and look up everything you can, and hopefully you'll find it as fascinating as I did. So I fangirled out a little bit. I was really excited. When I bought the tickets and on the website, it said that he wouldn't be taking pictures, because there were going to be so many people there. It was going to be an opportunity to do that. But your girl manifested, and I did get, not only is an opportunity to take a picture with him, he signed my book. I have my book right here, The Biology of Belief. I am a book hoarder, for one, and I'm one of those people who, when I get a really good book, I will buy the same book over and over again. This is legit probably my 3rd or 4th copy of this physical book because I read it and I just highlight the crap out of it. And I'm also a person who gives books away. When a book is really, really good, and I know someone personally who I think would be impacted by it, I just give it away and I buy another copy. This is one of those books I probably need to just get a whole stack of them and just keep them in my car so I can hand them out. But yeah, so I did get an opportunity to meet Dr. Bruce Lipton. We had a moment. We talked. I told him my experiences. I told him, how his book shaped my life. He offered me some really good words of encouragement and whatnot. And he gave me one of those really good, we call him Uncle Bruce. He gave me one of those Uncle Bruce, Grandpa Bruce, hug you back and rock you back and forth types of hugs. Like, we had a whole moment, and it was phenomenal. It was one of those things that I will never, ever forget. I will cherish that for the rest of my whole entire life. He did sign my book. That is his handwriting. So, like I said, it was a really amazing time. I knew I wanted to make some videos, probably a whole set of videos, to go over some of the stuff that he talked about in this particular lecture. But, one of the ones that was really standing out for me, and again, I've studied all this stuff, I've taught this stuff, and it just hit me in a different way in person for some reason. When he started talking about, he didn't use these words, but I'm going to use these words. I'm going to call it the age of consciousness, where he was talking about what happens, from birth up until 7 years old. That stuck with me. I think it stuck with me specifically because I have a 7-year-old. And it's so I had a real life, living, breathing, working example of the things that he was talking about how for those first 6 to 7 years of life, we are essentially in theta state. For those of you who don't know about the different brain waves, the alpha, delta, theta, go back and find my video about the law of attraction, and I kind of went in a little bit more in depth about that, but I'll be talking about it more in upcoming videos. But essentially, what you need to know about the age of consciousness and why the first 7 years of life are the most important is because you are essentially just, for the first 7 years of your life, you're walking around in theta. And this is proven. This is scientific stuff. Y'all know how I am. I don't want to just talk about spirituality. I need science. I'm a whole nerd. I need science to back it up. So it's proven that those first six years of life, 6 to 7 years of life, if you plug up an EEG and take a picture of the brain, it shows that the brain is in the theta state. Now, what's so important about the theta state is because that's where you and I are trying to get, right? When someone goes into hypnosis, when someone goes into deep meditation, we are essentially trying to force our brain into theta. Now, what's so important about theta? Theta is important because theta is when your brain waves slow down and you have an opportunity to access that subconscious kind of locked box where a lot of our beliefs are kind of programmed into us. That's an opportunity where we have to, we can go in there and do some things and change some things in the way that we want to. That's why subliminal tapes work so well. That's why affirmations work. That's why, hypnotherapy works. I talked to you guys about how I'm really funny about my energy at night. What I watch and listen to at night is because that theta state. But in terms of development as a child, those first 6 to 7 years, you're essentially walking around in a state of hypnosis, a state of meditation. And what you're essentially doing is you're just downloading content. You're downloading content. When we are born, when we're conceived and brought into this world, we are essentially like a blank disc, right? We're a blank disc. We have no real programming. And then we start to pick up information from everything around us, not just our parents, people that are in the house, people around the house, what they're listening to, sisters, brothers, siblings, friends of the family, people that are around you, your environment. For those first 7 years of life, you're soaking all that in. You're essentially like recording all of that stuff and you're downloading it into your little bitty body and your little bitty brain. And it's a little bit scary to think of the fact that so much of who you are as a grown-ass adult was created in the first 6 or 7 years of your life, right? So what happens when you switch over into 7 and you start to operate more in that alpha wave pattern is essentially the 7, that age of consciousness, which I'm calling 7 years old, is when you click over from just being in this state of recording and picking up on and downloading information from everybody around you, and you start to have a conscious working mind, right? So it's almost like when you turn 7, that's really when who you are as a person kind of just turns on. And like I said, Gavin, my son, is 7, and I see that in him, that he's just now starting to kind of come into who he is. If you guys have kids, pay attention to your kids. If your kids are not 7 yet, pay attention to them. If they are 7, if they're older than 7, think about when they were 7, right? That's when their personality starts to come out, because now they're doing more than just downloading and recording information. Now they're able to consciously have opinions and thoughts and feelings, and they can kind of piece things together. So that age of consciousness, when you turn 7, who you are at that point is basically who you're gonna be. Aristotle has a quote, "Give me the child for the first 7 years of their life and I'll give you the man," meaning what you observed for those first 7 years of life shape who you are as a person greater than probably any other years in your life. And it's a little bit scary. But also exciting, in a way. And it's really good from a mindful parenting place, because you want to make sure that you get in what you need to get in those first 7 years for your kids. And I was thinking a lot about my son, but it also made me think a lot about myself, right? Because sometimes we have these weird beliefs, and it just seems like we know that they're there, but we're like, where the hell did that come from? Why do I feel so strongly about these things? And so I'm really encouraging a lot of people in my current classes, in my one-on-one, and my upcoming workshop that I'll be doing on the age of consciousness, is to go back and examine where you were at 7. Tap into that 7-year-old version of yourself. What was your environment like? And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to know everything, because who can really remember everything from 7? I know I can't. But think about what your home life was like. Where were your parents? What were they doing? How were they communicating with each other? Were your mom and your dad both in the home? And how was your environment? Was there yelling? Was there cussing? Was there screaming? How were you spoken to? You guys know I talk about that a lot, is that a lot of our inner voice, this inner narrative that we hear inside of our head, is an echo from what we heard the first 7 years of our life. So, even when it comes to, we talk about poverty consciousness. Why do I struggle with money? Was your family struggling with money when you were 7, for those first 7 years of your life? Did you come from an upbringing where you weren't, it wasn't okay for you to choose what you wanted? Did your parents allow you to have any kind of opinion or free thought? A lot of our parents did not. Hello, Black people and other people of color. A lot of our parents did not allow us to have choices or speak freely. Some of us did, but regardless of your background, social, economic, race, all that stuff doesn't really matter. What matters is now, from this version of you, you have an opportunity to go back and examine and see how some of your programming got there. And you may not be able to figure it all out, but it's a really good starting point, is if you can tap into that 7-year-old version of yourself, then you have something to kind of go off of, and you can start to build from there. And once you start to get an idea of what your environment was for those first 7 years of life, then you can start to pinpoint what some of those belief systems may have been that were kind of programmed into you at an early age. And then you can do the work now to work on it. I just feel like knowing where it started is really important, so that you can go back now and work to rewrite those things. I think about it like this, right? Dr. Bruce Lipton used a really good analogy in his lecture about how, you get a new laptop and you turn that laptop on, and he was talking about it coming with there's no programs in it. It's essentially just it's a blank hole. It's a hole. It's an empty computer. And so if there's a program you want, you need a word processor, you need a certain kind of browser, you have to install those things, right? So you think about yourself, your mind being like a computer. What was installed in those first 7 years of life? I know one thing that irks my nerves, and I hope I don't get in trouble for this, but it is what it is. Y'all know how I am. I talk how I talk, right? So I don't really care for certain types of laptops. I'm not going to say the brand name, but there are certain types of laptops that I buy them, and they have programs that are installed on them that are so not useful to me, right? I'm going to just say it. Bing, right? I bought this laptop, and it had this default search engine built in called Bing. And I just, for the life of me, could not figure out. I would try to go to Google, and it would default me back to Bing. And I'm just like, why does it keep going to Bing? Never in my 36 years of neverdom have I ever said, oh, I wonder what time that restaurant closes. Let me Bing it. Like, that's not a thing. Like, I'm a Google girl. Like, I don't know what this Bing stuff is. But that Bing was programmed on the computer clearly before I got a hold of it. And it was in there. And I had to go into the actual hard drive of the computer where that software that was built in. And I had to uninstall Bing and set all of my default stuff to Google. because Google is life. No, but you guys get what I'm saying. Some of us have an equivalent to like Bing in our subconscious hard drive where we got some anger, we got some resentment, we have some poverty, lack consciousness stuff, we got self-esteem crap that we didn't sign up for it. I did not ask to have this. I don't know where it came from. I don't know who authorized this to be in my programming, but now it's here. And no, it's not my fault that it got installed in my system, but it is my responsibility to go in now and to uninstall that and to reprogram my system in a way that works for me. Do you understand what I'm saying? I hope y'all understand my analogies. I mean, it makes sense to me. I hope it makes sense to y'all. But so that was the big takeaway. One of the big takeaways was really the age of consciousness and paying attention to not only our own children, but our inner child. Yes, I'm using a psychology hot word. Tap into your inner child and see what's going on. I know it's corny, y'all. I know it's corny, it's cliche, but it's real. It's real. Tapping into your inner child, figuring out what was happening in those first 7 years of life will start you off on a path towards really understanding who you are and taking your power back in terms of being able to go in and changing some things within your own programming and taking control over your own life. So the book is Biology of Belief. This is the 10th anniversary edition. It's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of content. It is one of those books that you got to reread and read it again and then go back and read it one time. I just want to give a big fat thank you to Dr. Bruce Lipton. I know you remember me, Afro Buddha. Your girl is unforgettable. No, I hope that you remember me. I think that you do. I have such an affinity for people who are able to sit down and write multiple books and just put their heart and soul. This man has, such an amazing background as a cell biologist, and to have it come from that science, real life science place, and to fuse science and spirituality together. Man, one of my idols. Love, 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 love him. So I'm going to be sharing some more stuff with you guys over the upcoming weeks. But I wanted to start there, and I want to kind of put a little bug in your ear about, doing some self-reflection on those first 7 years of life. Got a lot of things coming up. Stay on the lookout for new classes, new courses, new workshops. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook at the Afro Buddha, Instagram at the Afro Buddha, everything. Just go to all your social medias and type at the Afro Buddha and follow me. As always, love and light to you guys. Namaste and shit. Bye, y'all.